So today in this lecture, we are going to continue with the life cycle of Anthoceros. In the last lecture, we have already completed external as well as internal morphology or internal structure of Anthoceros. Gametophyte is a dominant stage in the life cycle, and this dominant stage in the life cycle is capable of reproducing both vegetatively as well as sexually, but asexual reproduction is absent. Vegetative reproduction in Anthoceros is carried out by four different methods. The first method is called as fragmentation. Here you can see in the diagram, in the first one, there is a entire thallus gametophyte, and due to death and decay of the old vegetative parts or the branches, the lobes separate out, and these separated branches further develop into new plants. So this is the entire thallus. Here you can see there is a death and decay of the vegetative part is taking place, and further there is a separation of the thallus into number of lobes, and each of the separate lobe can develop into new entire thallus. Fragmentation is commonly observed in filamentous structure like algae, Pyrogyra, Zygnema, etc. But over here, fragmentation can be seen. The second method is by formation of gymme. Some bryologists have reported the formation of gymme on short stalk developed on the upper surface of the thallus, that is dorsal surface. And these gymme, they have a lot of reserve food material. So if they get detached, each of the gymma can develop into new entire plant body under favorable condition. The next method, in this thallus you can see at the apices tubers are present. Now when we say tuber, we generally think of potato, which is a stem tuber. So tubers are those are similar to potato in terms of reserve food material, especially those species of Anthoceros which are regularly exposed to drought condition. They develop rounded marginal thickenings, which are called as tubers. These are perinating structures. Perinating structures or perinating organs are those who can reproduce, especially they remain viable under adverse conditions like drought or any other stress condition. And once the conditions get over, they further give rise to the entire new thallus. So it is a method of reproduction. A few outer layers of the tubers are thick walled, enclosing a thin walled tissue full of reserve food material like starch, oil globules, and proteins. In dry season, the thallus perishes, but the tumors remain viable. At the return of the favorable season, the tubers will germinate and develop into new plants. Some species of Anthoceros have stalked tuber, which may be marginal or develop from the ventral side of the thallus. So with with stalk or without stalk, irrespective of that, these tubers will have lot of reserve food material, and under unfavorable condition, they remain as it is viable in the soil, And once the condition becomes favorable, like monsoon, they germinate and give rise to a new thallus. Then the fourth method is referred to as persistent apices. Persistent means something which remain, which persist, and apices here are nothing but the marginal meristems which are present at the apices. The apical cell with few adjacent cells survives the drought period. It is not known how the apical cell tides over the unfavorable period of growth. Probably the apices modify in some way to resist the drought. At the return of favorable season, the apices grow, forming new thalli. Now, this is somewhat similar to the earlier modification tuber, where specialized structures called tubers are formed, but here there is no separate structures are formed, but here the apical meristematic tissue, it survives, it persists, and under favorable condition, it will multiply and give rise to the new thallus. So one thing common you will find in all four methods, and that is only under favorable conditions where moisture is present, Anthoceros thallus can grow. The drought condition, that is where water is not available, is the condition where Anthoceros usually do not grow. I have asked you earlier as well. Please see around if there are any bryophytes, and you will find in this monsoon season there are plenty of bryophytes available, which otherwise are not present. So once the monsoon gets over, you will again get the lack of bryophytes, but only where there is enough moisture, still they will survive. So this is all about sexual reproduction. A short note may be asked on any of the particular method or two methods together. Write a short note on fragmentation and gymme, methods of vegetative reproduction, or maybe a full length question can be asked. Describe various methods of vegetative reproduction found in Anthoceros. Add a note on its systematic position. Okay, so combined together, they will give you the full marks. Of course, I'm going to share all these notes with you, but then let me finish the topic, because I'm sure the moment the notes are there, you people will disappear. There is one more way of connecting to you, and that is I'm going to provide you the link of all the previous lectures of mine. I'm just downloading them and putting them on the YouTube. So very soon I will be giving those notes, those notes in the Google Classroom, which will be created shortly. And at the same time, I will also provide you the link to all those particular lectures which probably you have missed. But that doesn't mean I'm encouraging you to remain absent for the lectures. Take it as a revision lecture. So here you can interact with me, and you can ask the questions. On the YouTube it is probably not possible unless and until you put the comment. Okay, so now the next topic we are moving towards is the method of sexual reproduction. We have already mentioned that Anthoceros reproduces by only two methods. Number one is vegetative reproduction, and second is sexual reproduction. So how is the sexual reproduction? When we say sexual reproduction means formation and fusion of gametes takes place. And depending upon the nature of gametes, we have got three methods of sexual reproduction: isogamous, anisogamous, and oogamous. Out of these three, Oogamous method is the most advanced method in which the organism produces sex organs, specialized structures which produces gametes, and the gametes are physiologically and morphologically both dissimilar. And in case of Anthoceros also, we get oogamous method of reproduction, and there are two different sex organs produced by Anthoceros. Number one is Antheridium, which is a male reproductive structure, and second is Archegonium, which is a female reproductive structure. As far as quite a number of few species of Anthoceros are concerned, they are monoecious, which means they are bisexual, they are carrying both sex organs together, while the others are dioecious, that means they have separate male and female thalli, but that is very rarely. The monoecious species are those who possess both the sex organs on the same thallus, but at the same time, they would prefer to be protrandous, which means the antheridia are formed earlier, whereas archegonia are produced later on. So it is, but obviously there is a difference as far as maturity of sex organs is concerned. And this is mainly done in order to prevent self-fertilization. As we are aware, there are many disadvantages of self-fertilization, and one of the main disadvantage being that there are no variations, and no variation means no organic evolution. So in order to overcome this problem, this disadvantage, many of the plant species would prefer to go for cross fertilization in terms of angiosperm cross pollination to bring about the variation. So Anthoceros is no exception to this. As far as sexual reproduction is concerned, I said there are two sex organs produced. One is called as antheridium and second is archegonium. This is antheridium of Anthoceros, which is present in the antheridial cavity. This is an antheridial cavity, and within this antheridial cavity, you'll get presence of antheridium. This cavity is produced within the gametophyte. So this is a gametophytic tissue, and within this gametophytic tissue, this is, or rather, these are antheridia. The antheridia of Anthoceros are unique in being endogenous. What is meant by endogenous? Endogenous means they are produced within. They are endogenous structures, which means they are produced within. Either they are formed singly or they are in a group. So you'll get either a single or they are produced in group. So here you can see at least two antheridia well developed, but at the same time you can also make out there is another antheridium coming out. So more than one are quite possible. And how they are produced? They are formed either singly or in groups on the upper dorsal surface of the thallus and within the antheridial chamber. So this is the antheridial chamber I was talking about. This antheridial chamber is produced within the gametophyte itself. So this is a gametophytic tissue. This is a gametophytic tissue, and there is an antheridial chamber, and within the antheridial chamber, these are the antheridia. So these are the antheridia, and here you can make out each of the antheridium is having a stalk, and it also possesses an oval shaped body. This is a stalk and this is the body. Okay. Am I audible? Someone has mentioned my voice is not reaching to you. Someone
Sir,
just
you are
confirm.
audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Okay, okay. Fine. Yeah, it is a oval shaped body. Someone has mentioned. Yes. Each antheridium basically consists of a stalk and the body. The stalk is multicellular, as you can make out. In fact, from this view, you are able to observe two rows of the cells, but actually there are total four rows of cells. 1 and 2 you can see from the front, and there are two more on the other side. So actually there are four rows of the cells. This is one of the difference between antheridia of bryophyta and pteridophyta. In pteridophyta you won't get such kind of a stalk. The body of an antheridium is oval and it consists of a jacket, that is an antheridial wall. Jacket is just a general term, something which is covering. So since this is an antheridial wall which is covering the androcytes which are enclosed, which are enclosing, which are inside that of antheridial wall. So jacket layer is actually enclosing the androcytes. So where are those androcytes present? So I'll just mark it. This is the wall I'm talking about, antheridial wall, and they are enclosing these cells, which are actually the mother cells. So this is antheridial wall, and it is also referred to as jacket layer. And below, you'll get presence of androcytes. As I said, the androcytes, the number is not fixed, but these are the mother cells. At maturity, the same androcytes will get metamorphosed into male gametes. Metamorphosed means they will undergo morphological changes, but there is no mitosis or meiosis taking place, which is normally the case when the spores or gametes are produced. The antheridial wall is also one cell in thickness and it is sterile. Sterile means it is opposite of fertile. It is not going to participate in the formation of gametes, but androcytes are definitely going to. When mature, the antheridia are red in color, and this is one of the color you have to remember when you are searching the fertile anthoceros. Fertile in the sense, if antheridia and archegonia are present, then and then only you'll be able to see the reproductive structures. Otherwise, you'll get only the vertical section of thallus. That's all. So when you are searching anthoceros in the field, you have to check out this redness. If there are red spots present, it is one of the identification marking that the antheridia are present. Okay. Uh, the antheridia dehisces when they mature. What is dehiscence? Dehiscence is nothing but breaking of the wall of this antheridia or the jacket layer, which is sterile. The antheridia dehisces when they mature. The roof of the antheridial chamber bursts irregularly, exposing the colored antheridia, which are now present in the cup-like depression or antheridial crater. The jacket cells, in presence of water, separate towards the apex, and this results in the formation of an aperture through which the anthrozoids are liberated. Now, it is not going to be clear in this diagram. This is a basic diagram showing antheridia. I'll move on to the next diagram where you'll be able to see the dehiscence of antheridia. Yeah, look at this diagram. Uh, you can see this is a roof of the chamber. Rest of the labels we have already checked out. These are androcyte mother cells, androgonial cells when they are immature. This is an antheridial wall or the jacket wall, and below there is a antheridial stalk, and this is a cavity. Okay, and now you can see here the broken roof. Now, why the roof has broken? I just repeat what happens at the time of dehiscence. When the antheridia mature, at that time the dehiscence takes place. The roof of the antheridial chamber bursts irregularly, exposing the colored antheridia. So at maturity, first of all, this particular roof, the outer wall of the antheridial chamber will break open. It will burst. Then the second thing what will happen is the colored antheridia gets exposed, and you can see now what is happening, that the antheridia are liberating the androcyte mass. What are those androcytes? Androcytes are nothing but the male gametes. In fact, they themselves are not gametes, but these androcytes are actually going to develop into the mature antherozoids, which you can see in the diagram C as a mature sperm. Either you call it as sperm or there is another name to it. It is also referred to as antherozoid. Antherozoids are also haploid in nature. They are produced from haploid androcytes. So antherozoid or mature sperm, you can make out it has got a spiral body, and at one end of the spiral body, you can see presence of two similar flagella. Plural is flagellae, and the flagellation which is present here is called as isocont. Isocont flagellation. Isocont is iso means similar. If both the flagella are same type, here you can make out both the flagella are of same type, then it is called as isocont. And if there are two types, one is like this and the second one is like feathery, what you call tinsel and whiplash type. So if two different types of flagella are present, then the flagellation is called as heterocont. Heterocont. So each androcytes develop into an antherozoid. The antherozoid is a small biflagellate structure having same type of flagella, that is called isocont flagellation. The body of antherozoid is slender. It is slightly curved as you can make out, and the unused cytoplasm forms the vesicle at the posterior end. Here you can make out that at the posterior end, this is a unused cytoplasm forming the vesicle. Forming the vesicle. Okay. Now the antheridia dehisces. Dehisces means breakdown. You can check out the diagram B. And I have told you what happens at that time. The roof of the antheridial chamber bursts irregularly, exposing the colored antheridia, which are now present in a cup-like depression or antheridial crater. This is a cup-shaped structure. You can also call it as antheridial crater, crater. And the jacket cells in presence of water simply separate towards the apex, and this results in the formation of an aperture through which the anthrozooids are liberated. Remember, water is essential for both for dehiscence, that is breaking of antheridium, and at the same time for movement of these antherozooids, that is sperms, towards the archegonia. And that's why it is a limiting factor. If water would be available, then and then only the antherozooids can reach up to archegonium and it can bring about the process of fertilization. If water is not available, it is but obviously the fertilization does not take place, and that's the reason why water is a limiting factor. Now, after the study of antheridium, now we move on to the next part, and that is archegonium. Archegonium, here you can see two diagrams showing nearly mature archegonium. So, archegonia is a female reproductive structure, and where it is present, it is also present on the dorsal side, but it is sunk deep in the fleshy tissue of the gametophyte on the dorsal side, and they are formed in rows and in the acropetal succession. As you are aware, acropetal succession means young towards the apex and old towards the base. So towards the base of the gametophyte,
Sir, what
you,
is the word?
yeah,
Acro.
just a minute. I'll note down. Acropetal manner. This word you also have in inflorescence, acropetal succession. Regarding the flowers, old flowers towards the base, यहाँ पे old flowers नहीं होगा, old archegonia towards base and young ones towards the apex. This is called as acropetal succession. So if I take a thallus, the thallus may, suppose this is the thallus. So this is almost the center. Okay. So if I consider this as the apex over here, and this is a base, so I would be getting archegonia over here. This is going to be the mature, I mean the old one, and the one which is present towards the apex, say somewhat over here, then this is going to be the young one. This nature is referred to as acropetal manner. All right. So the archegonia are the female reproductive structures which are formed on the dorsal surface of the thallus, and they are sunk inside the fleshy tissue of the gametophyte, and they are usually formed in the rows and in the acropetal succession or acropetal manner, where the old archegonia are towards the base and the young ones are towards the apex of the thallus. Now, how is the each archegonium? You can make out each archegonium looks like a flask-like structure, conical flask, which you take. Okay, so you can see the broad base, and then it is, having a long neck. So each of this archegonium is basically made up of a broad base called as venter, and then there is a long neck. So venter is a base, and the apex is nothing but the neck. So each archegonium consists of 6 NCC, that is neck canal cells. Total 6 neck canal cells are present. Here you can count only 5. Yes, there is a reason. This is bit immature, but count over here. This is a mature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This entire region is called as neck, and these are the neck canal cells. So I would just add a few labels over here. So this I will refer to as a neck, and this as the base called as venter. And the word I've used earlier, that the archegonia are sunk within the gametophytic tissue. So this is entire gametophytic tissue. They are not superficial. They are sunk inside the gametophytic tissue. And what you see on the top of the gametophyte is the opening, the outer opening. But that outer opening is also covered by 2 cover cells. At the end, that is at the maturity, these cover cells will also rupture out at the time of fertilization. So there are 6 NCC, that is neck canal cells, 1 ventral canal cell. Now this is ventral canal cell. This is only one. This is VCC. This is NCC. Okay. And the lowest cell in the venter is egg cell. So look at the composition: 1 egg cell, 1 ventral canal cell VCC, and 6 NCC neck canal cells, and 2 cover cells. That is how the arrangement is. So each archegonium consists of 6 NCC, 1 VCC, 1 egg, and 2 cover cells. Now there is no jacket layer around these axial cells except 4 cells at the apex which form lead or cover cells. Now again, I mentioned only 2 cover cells, but try and understand the 2 cover cells from the front. I mean this view. And there are 2 more, because if you imagine the 3-dimensional structure, actually there are 4 cover cells. So there are 2 more cover cells. They are also referred to as lead cell. Lead cells. And how many are there? 4. Keep this number in mind, because many times we get questions, MCQs based on the same. 1 egg cell, 1 VCC, 6 NCC, and 4 lead or cover cells. That is how the composition of an archegonium. The cover cells will slightly project outside the surface of the thallus, and they are surrounded by a cup-like mucilage mound. Mucilage is nothing but sticky substance. So around this particular area over here near the cover cells, you will get that mucilage. And that mucilage also plays an important role in the opening of this archegonium. The mucilage thus formed would absorb the water and creates pressure, because of which the cover cells open out. Now mucilage, as I said, is basically sticky substance, and it absorbs a lot of water. So just imagine if the mucilage present in the cover cell absorbs a lot of water, it is but obvious that it creates a pressure. It will swell, and as it gets more and more water, it is but obviously it will be more pressure on these particular cover cells, which later on are going to simply break down and they will open this particular passage. Now, why this passage has to be open? Simple. This is a female gamete over here, and you can see the female gamete is non-motile. So it is but obviously that the male gamete has to travel and enter into this particular archegonia neck and travel up to the female gamete egg. Then and then only fertilization can take place. And that's why these cover cells must rupture. But then at the same time, the cover cells also have to absorb water, create pressure, and open out. As far as the anthrozoids are concerned, the anthrozoids, there are many, they are present in the water, and they must come to this archegonia only if there is any kind of a clue they get. Now, what is meant by the clue? Clue in the sense there has to be some kind of a attraction for these male gametes to come up to the female gamete. And usually it is some organic acid like malic acid, which acts as an attractant and which is secreted by the archegonia in the water, and as a result of which the mass of anthrozoids starts swimming towards the mature archegonia. Because we already know that the bisexual varieties of Anthoceros, which possess both Antheridia and Archegonia, it is the Antheridia which mature before Archegonia. So it is but obviously the mass of anthrozoid liberated by one particular Anthoceros has to be released in the water, and it must go to the another thallus. But how do they know that which particular thallus Archegonia is at present mature and ready for fertilization? So that signal must come from the mature archegonia itself, and that signal is in the form of some organic acid like malic acid secreted by the archegonia, so that the entire mass of anthrozoid would reach to that archegonia. But then by that time, this particular neck must rupture. So how it will rupture? As I said, they also have a lot of mucilage. As more and more water is absorbed by those particular cells, finally the entire neck up to the venter will be clear, and the passage is clear for the anthrozoid to enter. So out of the entire mass of anthrozoid which is being attracted due to chemotactic movement or chemotaxis. Chemotaxis or chemotactic movement is the movement in the response to chemical. But whose movement? It is the movement of male gametes in response to chemical secreted by archegonium. And this usually happens in lower organisms or lower plants. If you have studied the reproduction in angiosperm, we know that the pollen grains undergo pollination. On the stigma surface, pollen grains germinate, form the male gametophyte. Within there are non-motile male gametes. Okay, and these male gametes will fuse with the female gametes. Okay, now there are specific names given to these particular process. Now, in case of lower plants, this particular version of fertilization is, or rather, a movement of male gametes up to female gametes via water is referred to as zooidogamy. Zooidogamy, especially found in lower plants. And in case of higher plants like angiosperm, we get siphonogamy. I'm sure you have heard this particular term. So siphonogamy is found in higher plants where pollen tube is formed, and this siphon stands for tube. So this pollen tube will carry the male gametes up to the female gametes. Whereas in zooidogamy, the male gametes will simply they will simply swim towards the female gametoid. Now tell me which one is a advanced method and why? Which one out of these two, zooidogamy and siphonogamy, is an advanced method and why?
Sir,
Zootogamy.
Siphonogamy, yes, it is advanced. But then my question is why?
Sir, because it is seen in most higher plants.
Uh, it is seen in higher plants. Okay, it is advanced. I agree. But it is seen in higher plants, which itself suggests that it is a better method. So why you feel it is a better method? एडवांस ऑर्गेनिज्म में है तो इसका मतलब इवोल्यूशन में उनके पास वो मेथड आया है. So why they are not undergoing zooidogamy? Why they prefer siphonogamy? और आंसर आपके सामने है और मैंने इनफैक्ट ये डिस्कस भी किया है. What happens to Bryophyta and Pteridophyta if water is not available?
The male gamete cannot swim to
Exactly.
the female gamete.
That means sexual reproduction will not take place. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So if sexual reproduction will not take place, then but obviously there are no variations and there is no organic evolution. Correct. So water becomes limiting factor. But then just try and understand the angiosperms are present in all the kinds of environment. You must have heard there is a group in angiosperm called as xerophytes. What are xerophytes? Xerophytes are the plants which are growing in desert conditions.
Deserts.
So already there is less availability of water. Barabar. But does it mean that the plants, angiosperms present in the desert do not flower or do not undergo sexual reproduction?
No, sir.
No, they will always under.
No.
अभी हम लोग जो ड्रैगन फ्रूट खाते हैं, what is a dragon fruit? It is the plant name is it's basically a xerophyte. It's actually a cactus. और उसका fruit आपको मिल रहा है, इसका मतलब उसका flower भी मिलेगा ना. So
Yes, sir.
all angiosperm shows flower and they undergo sexual reproduction. But उनको उसके लिए पानी की जरूरत नहीं है ना. So water is not a limiting factor for their reproduction. उनको जिंदा रखने के लिए पानी चाहिए, बट उसके लिए वो एडेप्टेशन करते हैं ना. जैसे आपने पढ़ा है प्रेजेंस ऑफ स्पाइंस, then they have phyloclade. All those are modifications. Closing of stomata during daytime, opening during night time. वो तो उनका एडेप्टेशन है. बट पानी नहीं है इसके लिए उनका रिप्रोडक्शन रुकता नहीं है ना. एंड दैट्स अ रीजन व्हाई इट इज अ एडवांस कैरेक्टरिस्टिक. आर यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so this is about Archegonia and the dehiscence I have already discussed. So finally, the fertilization takes place, and for the fertilization, on the maturity of Archegonium, the neck canal cells and the ventral canal cells will disintegrate, forming mucilage, the sticky substance. The mucilage thus formed absorbs water and creates pressure, because of which the cover cells open out. Abhi cover cells themselves are also absorbing water, and now there is a pressure from within also. So one fine day, those cover cells will rupture out, and the anthrozoids gets attracted by the chemical present in the mucilage. Most probably it is the organic acid like malic acid, and the movement of the anthrozoid takes place, which is called as chemotaxis or chemotactic movement. One of the anthrozoid out of the entire mass, only one, will unite with an egg cell, and thus it will form a zygote. The number of zygotes may be formed in the single thallus depending upon the total number of Archegonia present, because we have already mentioned that per Archegonia there is only one egg. बराबर है? But there are many Archegonia present on the thallus which are arranged in the acropetal succession. This is what we have already mentioned. Okay, so at a time there may be more than one zygote formed on the entire thallus. Now, what is the ploidy level of these particular zygotes? Ploidy level. Ploidy level means how many sets of
2n.
chromosome? Yes, because male gamete is haploid, female gamete is also haploid. So both fuses together to form a diploid zygote. Diploid zygote. And that is the beginning of the next stage in the life cycle, which is called as sporophytic
Zero.
generation. So here the gametophytic generation completes and the sporophytic generation will begin. Okay, so here what kind of question may be expected? If it is offline examination, describe sexual reproduction in Anthoceros, add a note on its fertilization.